Good evening, everyone. Thank you for being with us tonight and with introducing a first series of AI design frontiers. And our guest today is Hassan Ragab, entitled AI Authenticity and Visual Vocabulary. Again, thank you, Hassan, again for accepting our invitation. And Assalamu alaikum. We are ready to go.
Okay, walaikum salam. So thank you, Muhammad. And so first of all, thank you, Muhammad. This is not the first time that I um, collaborate with ArchiNet or love that design. So I'm very happy to be here once again. Thanks again. Um, this is like an interesting topic. I think I must have talked about the talks about like AI and architecture like maybe thousands of times. It's like the only thing that I think about like since 3 years ago. And I intentionally didn't put the title for this talk. I know like the title is AI and authenticity, but I didn't want to imply that I understand what authenticity really means, nor what the AI really means, nor what anything really means. My work is more about asking questions than actually trying to answer them. And my name is Hassan Ragab. I'm Egyptian. Now I live in California. I really don't know how to I don't want to say like classify myself, but like what do I do for a living? Um, I usually, I mean, I was trained as an architect, but then I did like furniture design, I did museums, exhibition design. Sometimes I stopped working for like a few months. I worked in construction and as a computational designer, and now people call me a digital artist. What is known, or possibly why I'm here, is that 3 years ago my work started to become popular on the media, uh, and many people were attracted to what I do. And my career actually was started before that. Maybe I'm not going to talk a lot about it, but it was really interesting that these things kind of caught the attention of so many people around the world, and it has set me on a different path in life, not only in work but also like in my personal life. And while I was working, like when I started working with AI 3 years ago, I didn't ask so many questions. I was just like really working because I really enjoyed it. I feel like there's something that is really driving me or pushing me to use these tools as much as I can. I was really enjoying it. I didn't really wait for a reward. Um, my my career shifted in a way that I really didn't plan to or anticipate, um, which was very interesting. But the more that I do it, I keep asking myself, why am I doing it? And maybe a good answer came to me that it's maybe I'm looking for something. Maybe I'm looking for like the beauty, and that brought into my mind this this movie. The great movie is called La Grande Bellezza, or like The Great Beauty by Paulo Sorrentino, that was produced in 2013, and it's talking about this writer whose name is Jeb Gabardella, and he keeps asking himself these questions. He lives like this luxury life, and in Rome, he parties like all the time, every night. He's a very, very gifted writer, but he's always sad. And I think what I really liked about his movie is that he's really like in every scene, everything that he says, in a very indirect way, he's looking for the beauty, and he sees the beauty in the most weirdest of places. Like, for example, in this scene, like like when people ask him like like he and the answer is like the smell of old people houses, but the real question was, what do you really like most in life? And it's really tells you like he's in the middle of the party. Everybody is having like a time that they really was looking forward to, but he just sitting there smoking a cigarette and just like, I smell of like old people's houses. And in a way, I really relate to that. I think like this is a great example. Although I don't party every night and I don't like live in Rome, this kind of life, but I think throughout my career, like I graduated in 2010, and before that I spent 5 years in college. Before that, 3 years in high school, and my career was always like a trial and error to look for something. And I think what AI has given me is that it has given me a way to try to find beauty, a beauty from a different standpoint. And when I started, it's just like, okay, so I'm gonna try, like, because I'm an architect, or because like maybe I'm a visual person. I've always loved geometry and I always loved shapes. I don't know if I'm an artist, or like if I ever were an artist, but I always had like artistic inclinations, whether like doing calligraphy or doing paintings, or like, I like to draw a lot, or even if in architecture, or like even in computational design, everything I always tried to look for something. But with AI, the options were limited, so I can look for so many things in such a little time, and it it leads to so many things and so many opportunities. Like, what are the opportunities for architecture? How we can introduce new vocabulary, like, or combine that with computational design. And maybe that's another aspect of, like, since because I've been working in this for like about 3 years, everybody is asking the question, okay, now we can generate images. And I'm not gonna talk a lot about like the technology and AI intersection between architecture, etc., because this is all over the place. But like now everybody is waiting, okay, what's the next step for AI? What we can produce beyond images? And my problem stays the same. 3 years ago, I had a problem with that, the, like what we are trying to do with AI, maybe collectively, or maybe it's just me, is just not enough. Like the visual vocabulary that we have, it's not really satisfying for me, and I don't think that we're ready to go to the next step yet. I I was saying that about 3 years ago, and I still like hold my stance around that subject. So I'm not really interested about any applications beyond how to integrate AI into architecture, to enhance sustainability, to enhance like the efficiency, because I think if we do not, because I think like there are bigger problems, and maybe that's like why I'm giving this talk. I think as architects, we tend to look, or like because we're architects, because of the base that we're working with, or because like this is a client based uh, career, that you are tied with a lot of context. You are tied with like what the client needs, the budget, maybe like that you need to make money, that you don't often think about architecture from different ways on different perspectives. And again, this is something that it help that the AI really helped like think about the cities in different contexts. So basically, this is like a series. It's called The City, and it's visualizing. Did that last year, and it's basically visualizing the different elements that affecting the buildings with the city. So like think about like a building not as a solid, like not like as like a solid thing, but basically it's more like a being. It is something that lives, that interacts with like different elements. But I think we all know that, but we do not express that in the ways that I know that AI allowed to. One of the examples like this example is called like Wicked Emergence, which again I was lucky to for this to be displayed on the TSP building during the File Festival in Sao Paulo 2024. Um, and here it's looking about like trying to understand like visual vocabulary that are coming out from a place that is not traditional, a place that is not about like the plans and sections, because again we can be very really efficient about that, and I'm sure like at one point AI will help to automate these all endeavors like very very easily. But like again, what's really hard for me is actually to find a visual vocabulary that improves something. And again, it's not a point here to make like this weird shape building, or like I'm not really interested in making like a building like shaped like a box, or like kicking, punching somebody. But it's just actually about like maybe if we put the building in a different context, maybe if we look at it in a different way, maybe that can inform a new vocabulary. And again, from early on, um, the ideas around the visual vocabulary for me, it it took like a different extent. Again, because I'm an Egyptian and because I live in California, I was lucky to work like on a capital architectural projects. Like for very famous architects, working on not only on designing but also like in constructing. So for me, maybe because I was away from home, I got inspired, or like maybe I was like homesick. So I started to look like for more vocabulary coming from the place where I come from. And in Egypt, it's a really interesting place because we don't have like to identify what the Egyptian is a really complicated topic. To identify what Egyptian architecture is even more complicated. We have like a variety, a wide variety of architectural styles that's resembling a lot of the struggles that happened in the area what we call the Middle East for over the past like 3,000 years ago. So the architecture there are very, very distinct, and it's very rich, and it could be really, really improving. So that was another place where like I was looking for the Greek beauty. Okay, so maybe it's the context and like how to shape the buildings, or maybe it is like the intersections between the different architectural styles. And while I was like amidst of all that, I stumbled upon like a very interesting uh, essay, which is by Alex Burrell, and it's called like The Age of Average. And it is a very interesting commentary on the prevailing trends leading to a homogenized culture and the commercial landscape. So this essay, it's discussing like different creative topics, including architecture. It's even referencing the Rem Koolhaas essay, which is called The Generic City. In this essay, Alex urges creators, designers, and businesses to recognize the value of originality, whatever that means. And it's really trying to study the impact of um, people's perception in the creative industries. So think about like maybe all the Airbnbs will look the same around the world, and why will that? Or maybe um, this city, like even like we're talking about the skylines of the cities. Why, if we if we take a boat, we go like to New York, on the shore of New York, or like on the shore of Dubai, or on the shore of China. Why the skylines from a distance where they will look the same, or why even the buildings will look the same everywhere? And again, it is urging that, like I think, like the essay is talking about, like right now we're living in an age where the beauty is average, and the average is something that everybody will react to in the same way. It's and that therefore something that everybody would want, and therefore that will be the main aesthetics, and any other aesthetic will eventually disappear. Think about like the evolution of cars. Cars, like I think at one point cars always had like this really, really interesting designs and shapes, but then after introducing like the aerodynamics design modules within how to design the structure of the car, all the cars now almost look the same. If we go back to architecture, I think my problem was architecture was architects, or like maybe my problem was myself, is that when we look at our cities, we always look at the architecture as in the foreground. We always look at like this is the main element. So we'll look at the details. Maybe in here, we'll look at like, hey, this is a really cool cladding. What material is that? Maybe look at this graffiti. Hey, this is very, very interesting. Or maybe we'll try to decide if this is like meeting the code of like the our city in the like the number of like windows that are scattered among the facade, if these are like a really, really good balconies, etc. What we often forget is actually what's in the foreground, which is usually the people. So architecture is a practice that is 100% is revolved and was started as like to serve people, right? But eventually, architecture, I think it stopped being about people or even about architecture anymore. And if you can see here, like in the on the left side, there is like the Paris model that was created by Le Corbusier in the early, maybe in the 30s, in 1930s, and at that point there was the ideas of modernism, which is form follows function, that was fueled by ideas that is mixed between like socialism and capitalism, where we're or equal and everything is the same. We have the same basis. We have the same things, right? And this is like was the promise of like what you call like socialist or communist thinking. In a capitalist world, it's not the case. Of like it's promoting individuality, it's promoting the importance of the person. However, if you talk about like the real premise of capitalism in terms of like how it's impacting architecture, it's taking the ideas of socialism, putting that like or packaging that in a different way and delivering that to people as a new form of individuality, but rather it's actually like the same thing. Like we have transformed like, with solid buildings to like a homogeneous style building where everybody takes like live in like the same exact, almost like the same exact thing, granted that this is like a type of luxury. This image like is from Orange County here in California, and as a person who lived there, I don't think like I'm living in a very very good architectural uh environment, or like I don't find it beautiful. Yeah, maybe like the only difference here is like, there's like some landscape, or like, this is like a little bit brighter, but for me it looks like really really the same. So it's not about the architecture serving people, and this actually like informs me, like drives me like, okay, but also like my work is not going to be about architecture. Like I find it hard to focus on like architectural details, or like, what architecture really does from the way that I studied or the way that I see most people kind of practice. But also it's not about the tools, and this is like again something like topic that is that I think like it's really interesting to discuss when we're talking about AI, because I think the the development of styles and the development uh, of trends is really associated with how the tools kind of evolve. You can see here, like this is a project that worked on 2023, and at that point, 2023 was like literally 3 years ago, actually 2 years ago, and if you can see here, like at that point, this was like the edge or the top of like what the AI videos can do, and now we all know that this is not the case. And while this at one point it would had started to inform some form of a trend or form a kind of style, when the tools evolve, this style becomes obsolete. So it's not really about what tools are we using, but it's, for me, it's always about like the people and how they react. So instead of like trying to think about the people in the background and the architecture in the foreground, maybe it will be a chance we're using the AI to do the other way around, where we can investigate new visual vocabulary coming from an inverted perspective, like a perspective that is just not typical. Like this piece is called Windows. There's a very beautiful song like in the background by Muhammad
Sorry,
Munir, Shabali.
Hassan.
Uh-huh.
The mic is very far. If you can just, yes,
Okay,
please.
is this better?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so as I was saying, like the architecture when we talk about uh, people and bringing them in the background, because every person, they have like some kind of a unique story, and these stories, whether we like it or not, they inform some form of a visual vocabulary. This was created in 2023, and what I really like about this composition in AI is that I'm not really controlling the narratives here, but AI is helping me to inform like some form of a narrative, and all I can do is to try to look for these narratives or like connected stories and connecting them with each other and let you interpret what that means. So maybe this piece, it informs, it's talking about a traffic problem where people cannot park their cars, or maybe it's talking about a person who lost their child, or maybe it's talking about a person who's waiting for something. This piece is called Waiting for Elevation. When I look for things, when I think about people, I think in order for me to understand what people want, in order for me to understand what that really is, I think I first need to understand who am I, and that brings the question of identity and what it really means, and is the identity a singular term or like a collective term? And when I think about identity, again, like I love movies, and when I think about identity, I think about like who I am and what really moves me. And I always remember this scene from The Mummy by Shadi Abdul Salam.
هل رأيت الموت يا مراد؟ ماذا؟
If I don't know how many people have seen The Mummy, but like in this movie, it's talking about like it's depicting a real life story of a person who lived like in a village in the upper side Egypt, where there was a family that was controlling, or like actually they have found a big, like many ancient Egyptian tombs, and they were in control of these tombs, and they were selling the artifacts of these tombs to to sellers, just to get a lot of money. And then this person has decided to revolute over that. And while he was trying to revolute over that, he had encountered so many questions about who he is and what's his connections to the past. And I think I find myself in a similar situation, and that kind of led some of my work that is depicting basically the work The Mummy. So.
هل رأيت الموت يا مراد؟ انتظر.
So this was like a short intro from a slightly bigger piece that was displayed on the pyramids of Giza last year as part of a festival called Forever Is Now. And again, in this piece, it's questions about asking myself, who am I? What am I doing here? What's my connection to the past? And this question keeps evolving. So this is another way to try to tackle this that I did this year.
هل رأيت الموت يا مراد؟
In a way, I think as time goes, when I try to revisit the work that I do, I always discover another layer about myself, another layer about what I wanna do, but most importantly, another layer about a visual vocabulary that I'm trying to create or I'm trying to avoid. Maybe again, leads me to question things about what I like or what I used to like. So this is another piece. This is surgical site and latent space. I come from Alexandria, Egypt, and I think if I'm looking for beauty, there's a great opportunity to look for beauty in the most unexpected places where people interact with each other in a very informal, different way inside the city. And for me, the tram is something that is very iconic to any Alexandrian, and I think it's an ecosystem within itself. And from the tram and from the intersections that are happening between the tram and the city and the people, we can really inform another way to express ourselves, another way to express our intention through a novel visual vocabulary.
إنسان أيا إنسان ما أجهلك، ما أتفهك في الكون وما أضألك، شمس وقمر وسدوم وملايين نجوم، وفاكرها يا موهوم مخلوقة لك.
It's not only about me trying to express something about Alexandria, but also something that is about I don't know, the relevance between Alexandria and when it's connected to other places. And this is like maybe because I live outside of Egypt and I don't go there like quite often anymore. Um, not that like I go back every 2 years or so, but again, I think like I start to see things in a very different perspective. As like when you caught into something, you really can't see the full scale of things. But when you take like two steps back, you see different connections and you make like different instances. And again, AI is a great tool to help like navigating. So this is another project that's called the Tale of Two Cities that is like merging like basic you look at the same structure at the same piece of the same image, but like the outputs are really different, and it's really depending on like how things evolve and how things translate in a different way. And I usually like find myself caught between like my ideas of like who I really am and what I really want to do with my life. And I think my identity, like if I'm trying to look for myself, I think of myself as not like a single entity that is just like confined or surrounded, but actually I know that I am part of like a bigger um, context, which basically brings the idea of collective identity. Because I'm not the only Egyptian, I'm not only Alexandrian, for example, and this my identity is actually my single identity is actually weaved with so many people that I probably have never met or people that I've met. Um, but that brings like another collective identity, which is like who we are and how do we express ourselves. The ideas about collective identity brings the idea of a home. And when we talk about homes, I always remember this quote by Naguib Mahfouz. I think it's from the novel Al Harafish, when he says like home is not where you are born, home is where your all of your attempts to escape cease. And again, this is me trying to figure out as I come to a new place. Um, how do I really react to that place, and how do I react to home and in home at home back at home there are people and people that I really connecting to, but I'm also trying to connect to other people here, and how this can try to think about the idea of a home informed by a certain like visual vocabulary that is expressing some form of a collective identity. So it's not only about like me but about like people and what they represent. And this this venture like this idea has led me to like discovering so many visual vocabulary on the like a color series. It was called like Identity on the Verge of Collapse. Another one was called like Writings of the Walls. And it's like trying to imagine our homes with and without like influences, whether like it's historical or it's political. Think about it as like think about a home as a vessel to like a way to express visual identity or a vessel of carrying some form of a distorted history. And it can take like so many shapes and so many ways to how we want to again if you were thinking back about like the Alex Murrell paper which he was talking about like the generic city, how are we reacting to that in creating our homes, and how we can by understanding who we are how we can reshape the way that we live and the way that we create. But this problem is tied to another problem because while we have an identity, was like who were we? When using AI, or maybe like in the world, there's the idea of like who they think we are, how other people perceive us, and this brings like the issue of bias and like how AI models can sometimes excel in generating something and they are not great on the other aspects. Also, another issue about bias is stereotyping, and it's something that is actually inherently human. stereotyping is something that I kind of fought against for some time, or like I felt like I don't want to be represented from a superficial point of view. But the more I work with AI, the more I feel connected to this way of representation, because I think bias is true. It has like some form of truth, and with this bias, I can try to make it work on my advantage in terms of like expressing again a novel way to how people live, or like a different ways of people and how do they interact with their cities. And for me, this is again part of the attempt of trying to find like all these like new visual vocabulary that kind of exceeds the Zahadis in the world, or like the Bjarke Angels in the world, but actually try to take two steps back as an architect and think, let's reshape, or like let's rethink how our cities look like now, but let's look at it from a different perspective, not as these are like deficiencies or like these are problems. Usually I get criticized about my work that I'm kind of misrepresenting Egypt, or like I'm highlighting the bad, or like what doesn't look nice. But for me, I love these images because I think there's a lot of truth to them, and there is some form of warmth that I feel when I'm away from home, when I look at these images, because people there, like people in Egypt, they are kind and they are nice, and their circumstances, they're just beautiful. Again, I keep thinking about this example of like Jebka Bardella when he's sitting in, like, he's having like a great party. He's having the fun of his life, and he just want to smell all people's houses because it connected to that. It connected to him. It brought to him. He's looking for it because it's who he is. That's the true beauty from a lens that um, that transcends the ideas of like visual capitalism, or like visual colonization, in my opinion, of like how everything is just standard to be minimal, how everything is standard to be like organic and weird shaped, how everything needs to be extremely sustainable, but actually it's not that sustainable. It's just, for me, this visual vocabulary is really, really true. But when I'm away from that, I'm keep asking myself, like, again, going back to Naguib Mahfouz's quote, like, where will all my attempts escape seas? Like, where is home? What is home to me? And like, I'm at that point in my life, I really don't know. And what I really love about my work is like it's trying to make me express what home really means, and ties that up with like the ideas of looking for visual vocabulary. But that doesn't come out as easy, because I think also there's a lot of things that we need to emphasize to people. And just like, again, like, go back to George Orwell's quote, where like you really, like, you really need to become a revolutionary to actually state the fact, like, of what something really means. So like, we have now sunk to a depth at which restatement of the obvious is the first duty of intelligent man. If liberty means anything at all, it means the right to tell people what they do not want to hear. In terms of universal deceit, telling the truth will be a revolutionary act. And again, this is not coming from a place like of coming a revolutionary, or like, not trying to be another Che Guevara, but sometimes as architects we really need to face the devastation that can happen to our cities. And again, this is like an example. This is another collection that I created, that is still in the progress, or started 2023, and talking about like the other side of capitalism and how people live in the cities of the United States. So like, if you go to San Francisco, a place where like most billionaires live, it's just filled with devastation, and it's filled with like a lot of homeless people. It's filled with poverty that I've never seen in any place that people might call the third world countries. Um, but again, it's a beautiful. When I look at it, it is really unfortunate, but it's also beautiful in terms of like, we can try to utilize these visual vocabularies to inform us designers, to inform us architects, that we need to do something different. So when we're using AI, before jumping into like, hey, let's see how AI will create like 3D work for us. Let's see what AI will like integrate with with BIM or like integrate with anything. My work is more revolved around, no, if we started using AI right now, we're just like in the architecture process in a bigger capacity. We are just replicating the problems that is facing our cities uh, since we started building them basically. And a lot of cities are failing or will fail because we don't, as architects or like master planners, we do not put into consideration the elements of like that the city has its own rules, that the city, no matter how much we can control them, if we not think about them carefully, if we don't think about the visual vocabulary that we create, if we don't think about the problems that we have right now and how to solve them, instead of like think about like another future utopia, we are gonna just repeat the same mistakes again. And I'd like to end this by like again another quote of like uh, one of my favorite authors, Muhammad Kamil Hussein, when he says like your hope in humanity begins with realizing humanity is with you. So when we look at a visual vocabulary, when we look about looking for identity or authenticity using AI or anything else, if we kept on having the same thinking, like the same mentality about I need to be the best, I need this tool to do the most sustainable design ever. If I don't thinking about like another context. If as an architect, I just like develop another real estate development, and on the other side of the street, I see like tens of homeless people or people who are suffering. We are just failing humanity, I guess. And the best thing that we can do, like what I try to do with my work, is to start to realize that hope of humanity. Um, and that's it. Thank you so much for listening. Sorry if I took longer than I
Not at
had
all,
to say.
Hassan. Thank you a lot. And I
Yeah.
believe everyone agree with me that you repeatedly said that you're looking for the identity and who you are. And I believe it's really reflected on your work. And we have a lot of questions here, but I will start with what our colleagues with us now have in the chat. Uh, um, so I will start with the question that we have. So first question with Loai. Uh, he says we can go far in our imagination, architectural design, and create dazzling facades. Still, reality imposes numerous constraints, including cost, structural feasibility, energy consumption, and the incorporation of natural lighting, etc. How can we reconcile these constraints with architectural imagination? Is it through an iterative design process between the different stakeholders in the design team?
Um, I mean, if you really want to, I mean, let's look at it this way. There is like the term that's called like performative architecture, or like, you know, if you're talking about like the work of like Norman Foster, for example, if you're trying to achieve something that is kind of universal, if you want to achieve like really, really efficient building, your vocabulary will mostly be informed by like different shapes and different contexts. So in computational design, if you're trying to optimize for like lighting, for example, you would start with the study analysis of the light, and then you can try to fit your program to fit this. So like architectural vocabulary at that point does not start from AI text to image. That's not the case. Um, I don't know how to answer this question. Maybe that's like my answer. It's in terms of like I'm not really interested on having the most efficient building while it's not really serving people. And I think your question, I mean, this is important. These are like important questions that Wai is asking. Like, yes, efficiency and cost, etc. These are like a really important aspects within the architecture, and we've been trying to work so hard on it. There are so many researchers that are going through this, but that's like not my interest really, because for me, no matter how hard you try to fit a great project in a process of like you want to, if you created like the most efficient project, if you created the project like was like the perfect lighting, like was the perfect uh, energy efficiency, if it's not helping many people, it's not useful at all. And for me, again, my work comes like from an architectural realm. Hopefully, when we solve like one problem at a time, maybe if we start to find a visual vocabulary that like relates to people, maybe we can try to fit that into the bigger criteria. But like at that point, I'm just like looking at the first problem. This is a bigger problem that
Mm,
I don't think I'll ever answer. So maybe not in my lifetime.
mm. Well, I know you had mentioned in the presentation that you won't speak about the applications and softwares or AI models that you're using, but we have a question here from Liliana in
Yeah, sure.
terms of your process. Do you have any preferred AI models to work with, or did you create your own, let's say, platform, whatever?
No, I don't. I do not create my own platforms. I'm not sure if I have a preferred thing because, like, these tools, like, they evolve constantly. Um, and some tools, like maybe like the two tools that I've kept on using over the past few years is maybe Midjourney and Stable Diffusion. And for the
Mhm.
past 2 years, like, I'm using Comfy a lot. And there's a lot of tools that come out, and I try to use them all. My process is really in the works. My process is always about like an output or like maybe an objective. It's like, hey, I want to explore a visual vocabulary in that sense. What I will try to do, I'll try as many tools as I can until I achieve something, but it's always like a mix between different tools, AI tools and non-AI tools. I use Photoshop, I use Rhino, Midjourney, Comfy, a lot of tools. But what's important, why I don't develop my own tools, is that I'm really interested in investigating the bias inside the large language models. So I'm not like, if I build my own thing, I might be biased toward that model or like build my own bias. But I really want to investigate the bias on the big models because I believe like these big models are the future of the tools that anybody is going to be using, and this is like our
Mm.
shared bias thing. So that's why I'm kind of focusing on exploring the
Yeah,
big models. I don't like to build my
yeah.
own models.
Well, we have a question here from Sana about that. Since AI is trained or biased in incomplete data, how can we ensure it does not reproduce stereotypes or marginalize certain identities?
Oh, it does. There is no way to control that. It does. And I'm not sure what the person means by like incomplete data, but also like as people, we do not have any complete data when designing anything, right? We are biased in our designs, and so our AI will be also biased. And I think in my talk I mentioned about, for me, while I try to tackle this issue or talk about this issue, or like I'd like to study how the models evolve. Like for Midjourney, I always like to study how it was enabled to produce a certain style at one point, and as like it progresses, it started to do this, and it might be more biased towards something else in between. But I also, in my talk, I was talking about how I like to use bias, and I think it's I don't know, I have fun like using bias, but the problem that the person is talking about is there is no way to control the bias within the AI models or actually within the architecture practice, even if we're not using
Mm. We have a question here or comment from Andreas. I'm Colombian and have been twice to Alexandria. The images and videos capture the city soul in such nostalgia and beautiful way is just great. When you are creating your work, do ideas come organically or is there any process you follow? Do you think these ideas come organically from you don't nowhere or is there a process you follow? Sorry. Yeah.
it. I'm not sure if there's a process, but I think there is, but I'm not sure how it is evolving. To be honest with you, it's very artistic. But I always start from an ocean or something of like an interest. So if we're talking about Alexandria, like first thing that comes to mind is like how the AI models perceive Alexandria, right? And then for me, I try to explore the different iterations or different ways that the AI is representing Alexandria. Then I'll start with different elements about Alexandria. Like one element is the tram. Another element
Mm,
is like the Art Nouveau architecture that it's an old town Alexandria. Another element is like the Mediterranean Sea or like the brutalist buildings that are existing in like a more, I don't want to say modern Alexandria, but like, I don't know, yeah, probably you can consider that modern Alexandria. When these elements, when I achieve some form of like a visual vocabulary for each, I'll start to combine all of these elements. Um, so in a way, it definitely comes organically. So when I started the series, the city is a tram, it just emerged, which was beautiful. I did not intend to have a series about the tram. It just came to be.
you know, we have a question here from Saddam. He says your work shows how can how AI can become more than just a tool and evolve into a creative language of its own. For someone aiming to build a career in this field, what do you see as the key steps to move from personal experimentation to make real impact in the creative industry?
Don't think about making a creative impact in the industry. That's the first thing that I'm not trying to, definitely. If I did, it was not intentional. I think if you're talking about like my work is within the realm of arts, right? So it's in the realm of exploration. When I do this, I'm trying to express myself and I don't really care about like what impact is going to happen. And this is a problem, but I understand where Saddam is coming from, because this is a problem that I face as a professional. So my career kind of depends on my work right now, and this is a career that I chose. And sometimes it makes me to make like very, very hard choices. Um, but if you want to create something that is authentic, something that is true, you want to keep it to yourself. You want to be as honest as you can with yourself, and maybe you can get a career on it, or maybe it's not. And if you don't get a career in like in this kind of work, maybe it's good for you. It's a hard career. Like, yeah, and making an impact is not something that is I don't even look for anymore. It is something that actually can tie you down.
Mm,
It can like limit what you can create. So as long as you're just like, for me, I just like trying to stay true as much as I can, and things happen. Good things happen and bad things happen. So I just try to be true to yourself. That's all I can
mm.
say.
We will take more talk questions, okay? So
Yeah, yeah, sure.
you cautioned against hasty AI applications beyond image generation. What signs would tell you AI is ready to influence actual design practice, not just imagery?
Oh, there's a lot of applications, and architects are trying to introduce AI into the architecture process. Um, what I know for a fact from like big companies are trying to utilize technology to maximize profits, right? Um, so how to maximize profit? It's by like trying to use any automation tools. Like people used Revit because it was like really, really efficient in creating so many projects so fast. It was much easier than AutoCAD, and people adapted AutoCAD because it was much faster than just like drawing by hand. It was more efficient, and it enabled them to create more projects. But as architects evolve the technology, they use the technology in their processes to help them with their current practice. They are not trying to reinvent how they work. So if a company is building like with concrete, they'll use like the new tools to build concrete buildings, right? Whether it's right
Mm,
or wrong, it doesn't matter. Maybe they will do like some like analysis about like cost efficiency, but that again won't matter because you're gonna use the tool anyway. Now we can see in the world like a lot of experiments, and a lot of companies are utilizing AI in like some form of documentation. There are also like MCP tools with like model context protocols that now you can connect tools like Claude, which is like ChatGPT or like similar to ChatGPT, to Revit to do stuff for you. You can do it for documentation. So everybody is rushing to use AI in so many ways, even for visualization, like to present for the client. Instead of like doing a rendering that will take like 4 or 5 days, you can create it in 30 minutes. But what is
mm,
the quality for that? Everybody is using it, and everybody is really on it without really questioning what's the real cost of that.
mhm. So last question, uh, you highlighted the complexity of defining Egyptian architecture and identity. How does AI intersect with such surge for cultural expression in your work?
Hmm. I'm trying to figure this out myself. Um,
Mm,
I think AI is a great tool to explore visual vocabulary. Uh, because I don't know, I don't want to take like too much time to explain it, but basically AI is a great collage tool, and that's how new ideas emerge. Ideas don't emerge from like a vacuum; they emerge from like the marriage between different ideas, and then like a new idea will emerge. And in that term, AI is a great tool to do this. If you're talking about like Egyptian architecture, which is what is really Egyptian architecture, it's not ancient Egyptian. Uh, it is not Islamic architecture. It's just like something in between. So maybe if there is an Egyptian visual vocabulary, maybe AI can help us merge all these styles in the most unexpected of ways. Uh, I think of it as like I'm trying to use AI to give me so many variations about so many interactive ideas that comes from like what they call hallucinations, which let's put like 3 or 4 different elements together. Let's see how they emerge. And through this, sometimes I feel like I'm looking at an intangible vocabulary that is now becoming visual, like the marriage, like maybe in this image here, like the marriage between the microbuses and the pyramid, like hung up in the sky. This for me tells, hey, this is Egyptian, but it's a vocabulary. It's not necessarily a usable vocabulary, but it is a vocabulary. I
Yes.
don't think I would have created that without the AI. So that's how it's.
Yeah. Hassan, we would like to thank you again for being with us today. Our first session in the AI design frontiers and our collaboration with our partners. Love that design. Hopefully, we'll collaborate with you in the future again. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you,
Thank
everybody,
you.
for your time. Appreciate it.
Take care. Thank you.
Bye.
مع السلامة.